Hi, I'm Economic Liberty, and I'd like to discuss a few of the issues that are on my mind today. I've been looking at the arming of militants by the CIA that are mujahideen, that are Islamic extremists that want nothing else than to fight for the cause of Islam against the what they see as the occupation and tyranny of the West, and in many cases rightly so. Essentially, over in Libya, we saw the Muslim Brotherhood, the Mujahideen, basically uh, men that had fought against Allied soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan and various theatres of war. The survivors, having returned home, were then finding themselves, in many cases, armed by the very enemies they were fighting against so that they could take down Gaddafi. And now we're seeing this begin to take place in Syria, where the powers that be have decided that Assad is the next one that should go. And so now we're seeing the same thing happen, where these scumbag intelligence agencies that are essentially run by globalists are going in there and they are arming the very uh, enemies that were killing their own in these theatres of war. So now we have Islamic extremists being armed by the CIA, by these agencies in the West, in order to take down regimes they don't like. They're arming the very people that killed their own sons. And essentially, they are proving themselves to be enemies of sovereignty. They are enemies of the very people they are claiming to protect. They are arming the very people that went into war to fight against their own children. They are arming the enemy. And it is a financial and social occupation that we are now beginning to see emerge worldwide. And if you don't live in Greece and you don't live in Spain or Portugal or even Italy, then you're not so aware of what it's like to be on the cutting knife edge of this reality. But if you do live in one of those countries, particularly in Greece, then you understand what is happening, that these globalists that are controlling our financial institutions, that are controlling the very policy, that are basically putting in armies where their interests are threatened, where they're profiting from war. And we see in Greece with the latest bailout that these central bankers have been paid 100 cents in the dollar, while the smaller banks, which own the pension funds and savings of the Greek people and ordinary people all around Europe and around the world, are having their savings destroyed, while these central bankers take every cent in the dollar. And the first little payout, hundreds of millions of dollars, went to these central bankers who were refusing to take even a single cent of cut on what they were owed. And how did they get that money? They got that money by putting the Greek people through the ringer, charging them massive interest rates just so they could get more euros to survive. And now they're putting them through the ringer by crushing their very economy, slashing their wages, turning them into a slave state, while they take hundreds of millions of dollars and destroy any hope they would have had of recovery. And now we see this pattern emerging in Portugal, who will most likely be next. Portugal and Spain are next in the firing line, and this year in 2012 we're going to see the same sorts of things happening. We're going to see massive rioting in the streets. We're going to see massive downturns with more and more people out of work and struggling to survive. We're going to see huge civil unrest, and we're going to see a growing organisation of anger and resistance against this tyranny. And we're also going to see a greater mobilisation of the forces of tyranny through the armies, the defence forces and the police forces in order to crush any opposition to what's happening. As the power more and more gets into the hands of these greedy, evil men, we will see the conflict escalate. And ultimately, this will not stop until someone is ultimately victorious. And after that time, we're either going to see peace, or we're going to see a reign of tyranny like we've only read about. We're seeing the rights of people gradually eroded through legislation. Obama turns out to have been a great pick by the globalists, because through his NDAA bill and a variety of other things that are taking place right around the world, here in Australia, not just in America or in Europe, it's happening everywhere. Here in Australia, there's illegal surveillance that's been reported going on widespread. We're talking Cold War, Soviets levels of surveillance. They are surveilling everything. They used to need warrants. Now they can just tap into your phone whenever they want to listen to something. They can record your information, as WikiLeaks revealed. They can tap into your Google email whenever they like. They can basically access your bank account information whenever they like. They can look at whatever they like in order to try and find something that they deem to be contrary or a threat to their interests. And now it's just been announced that police are going to be going around in Australia and testing everyone's wireless networks, and they are testing the boundaries of everything they can, because they know that a police state is very much on its way. And as our economic system collapses, which it will, the back-end inflation from all these trillions of dollars of money that's been printed and just handed straight to the banks, it hasn't stopped the real reality, and that is that the common man has been put so far under the heel of these controllers that he's no longer able to generate the kind of activity that's required to keep the system running. And when you've got 10, 20, 30 or 50% unemployment, as we're beginning to see around the world, there is no way the system can maintain. There is no way that the people are able to produce and give the amount of productivity that these world controllers, these banksters, need just to keep their Ponzi scheme going. And so they're printing trillions and trillions of dollars, and they're unable to maintain it. And it's becoming readily apparent that it's only a matter of time, months, maybe a year or two maximum, really, before this really starts to come down and we start to see a collapse of core systems, of our agricultural production / supermarket, world transport systems that make all this stuff happen. We're going to start seeing what's happening in Greece now is really a bit of a glimpse into what's going to start occurring through the world, where you've got people turning up to barter markets and swapping items because they're unable to trade in the system of euros in the banking system. And you know what, that's a good thing, and that's one of the great things that can come out of this. But at the same time, you're also going to see crackdowns happening on that, which we're beginning to see right around the world with the legislation coming in. They're arresting and detaining backyard farmers, backyard sellers. These kind of trade arrangements where people will rock up and trade are seen as a major threat, as an illegal threat to the system, and this is thus going to be another form of conflict, and this will end up having to become an underground scenario, and it will end up getting to the stage where you'll find people turning up to barter markets, and you'll find undercover agents turning up to barter markets, and it sounds crazy, but I can guarantee it's happening right now in Greece. And there'll be arrests, and there'll be charges, and there'll be places getting levelled, and you name it, it will be going on. And as those kind of events increase in occurrence, the resistance to those events will increase in its intensity and its organisation. So we're really heading towards a pretty ugly place. And the fact of the matter is that this has happened right throughout history. The power brokers deem that it's their God-given right to control and to suppress. and to create the world that they see as fit, which essentially is a world that's subservient to them and that works for their interests. Unfortunately, in the process of doing that, they crush the very liberties of the people that could otherwise sustain a very happy, profitable scenario for all. But it's not enough. These types of people that tend to get in these types of positions over the course of centuries are the types of people that are born and bred to step on your neck. And that is why and how they get to these situations. And that is why these kind of conflicts just keep coming up throughout history. Because the nature of the beast is that these types of people are always in opposition against a wider populace. Sooner or later, some family member cracks some kind of ability to get in control, like the Rothschilds did in the 16th and 17th centuries, and various banking dynasties, like the Rockefellers did in industrial America in the throughout the last couple of centuries, and various other groups and families that have emerged in power. And as they consolidate their power, they become more and more powerful. And through the corporate model, they are able to globalise their agendas through the culmination and integration of world governments and NATO and world bodies like the World Bank and IMF. They're able to start pushing these agendas that have the ability to control not only their own nations in which they operate, but also nations right around the spectrum, and control the nations on the whole. And ultimately, we're going to see more and more of these global activities they're able to basically lay out an agenda which can and will affect the entire globe, whether that affect liberty or finance or law or freedom in itself. We will be seeing more and more of that take place. And so let's stand up and be a voice against this, because it is real. It is still subtle in our neck of the woods, but it is so real, and we can see what's going on. And it's time to start really taking further action to protect ourselves and to start pushing back against the agenda of these control freaks.